So it's me, Richard, and my co-teacher, Diana, and we're here for the first part of the workshop, which is the introduction to version control.
Yeah, hello everyone.
So I'm a staff scientist at Aalto University, working in what's essentially the high-performance computing and research software engineer team. And
Yeah,
Anna.
I'm Diana Yushan. I'm an application expert at Upmax and NICE in Sweden. Very happy to be teaching it for you together with Richard.
Yeah. So let's see. So if we start on our schedule here and we scroll down, or the course page, we scroll down to the schedule. Note that the schedule translates the times to what the browser thinks is your time zone. So don't get confused with that. And we come to Introduction to Version Control. I'll open that and switch here. So yes. So this is where we all start. So the whole workshop is somehow about version control. So the first week is more using it, and then the first week is more learning how to use it, and the second week is really applying it in a lot of cases to really drive it in and see how it can benefit the actual work. So the first week, starting about a year ago, we reorganized the lesson sum. So previously we started from the command line and did everything in some sort of like basic order. But now we have a different plan. So now the general idea is the first day we get used to just the concepts by using the GitHub web interface. The second day we go to the command line or VS Code on your own computer and we repeat the same things and show sort of a more realistic working method where you're editing code and things locally. And then on day 3 we sort of combine them. So we do some editing ourselves, but then we also do collaborative work. So we use GitHub and then we all contribute to the same exercise repositories and practice making bigger projects. But every day you'll see in the lessons we have these tabs where you can choose. Do you want to try to do the exercise from the GitHub web interface or from the command line or from VS Code or from RStudio? And well, I think that's the main options, but there might be even more added later.
Yeah, exactly. And if you already have a
Yeah.
preferred IDE that has integrated, you're free to use that. So that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a yeah. So even though we have this general workflow, you can look at the other things and try to get a preview of what comes before, or use the older method, like the GitHub web interface if you're not set up for the local work. There's a lot of options here, and we'll try to make it clear what you should be doing at each point of time. So with that being said, are there any other starting notes before we begin? Let's see.
Yeah, so just to
Yeah,
mention that today you only need a GitHub account and a way to actually sign in to your GitHub account, and you can follow along just using that. So no need to have VS Code or anything else set up.
right. Yeah. And I guess at the end of the day, we should talk a little bit about how to prepare for day 2.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let's not forget that. So with that being said, I will scroll down a little bit and we begin with motivation.
Yeah, Richard, so tell us, why do we actually want version control?
Yeah. Well, my favorite example was part of the icebreaker. So the fact that several times a year, my friends, as in people that I would think would know version control, come to me and say, yeah, I've just lost some code I've done, and now I have to go spend a lot of time to figure it out or make it again or whatever. And it's just a bit unfortunate. Like, I feel bad for them. But also I understand because I've been in those places too. I used to often lose my code because I didn't have this code time machine to go back. Or I did, but I only wanted to use it when it was perfect and not when it was there. Or not when, not all the time. But let's see. So basically what we get here when we scroll down on this page, Git is about keeping track of changes, and the changes are what makes the time machine. So for example, this is a screenshot from the GitHub web interface. And you see here there's dates. So something made on June 22nd, 2023, October 21st, 2021, and so on going back. We see a quick description of what it is, who did it, and then some other things. So we can copy link and identifier for it and things like that.
So this is the
And
history actually of a GitHub repository.
yes, correct.
Mhm.
And this is our ultimate goal. So once we have the history in the structured form, it becomes really easy to say, oh, I want to go back to what we had in 2018 and see if it's any different than what we have now, and so on. So by the end of today, we hope that you can make one of these histories yourself and understand why it's useful. And when we scroll down more, this is what it looks like from the command line, from the terminal. So it's the same kind of information. We see a commit ID, author name, description of it, and it sort of goes on down. Same data. So why do we keep track of versions? I think this is probably something I've already said, but yeah, I mean, basically, if you want, well, you can see all kinds of problems here, which you probably heard before or will hear in your career, but which can be easily answered with having this kind of history. Are there any here that are especially bad? This My laptop is
Your
gone.
laptop
Where's
is
my
gone. I
thesis
think
gone?
that's quite.
That's, I mean, I
It's not
remember
good.
hearing, yeah, like when I was doing my thesis, I remember hearing stories of, yeah, my laptop's been stolen and my thesis is gone, and just like, well, nothing to do. So I was very, how would you say it? Strict in using version control and pushing it to make a copy on another server. So I know that no matter what happened to my laptop, I'd be able to get all that stuff back. And
Yeah, and
there's plenty more.
I think that identifying a version that authors use in a certain paper is very useful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as I
Yeah,
mean, especially with larger software that is being developed constantly and new features being added, it's important to know what exactly has been used in a certain version.
yeah,
So yeah, that's important, and we'll teach you actually how you can refer to a particular version of
yeah,
your
yeah,
code or repository. It doesn't have to be code, it can be whatever really.
yeah. That reminds me. So when talking about an old version in a paper, one thing I usually hear people complaining about is I've got my paper reviews back and now I need to do some updates. But they've kept working on their code for other projects and now they can't reproduce what's in the paper anymore and they're getting different things. And that's just, well, tragic maybe. Like how how is it different? So whereas to think something's probably improved there, but if you can't easily find it, then how can you be confident in what you've got? So once we have this version control, it's not just a history. So there's other things. So rollback is kind of obvious. So we have an old version we want to go to, and we can say, revert me to that version. We can also do branching and work on two things at the same time, merging and collaboration. So for example, if you have a project where you're working with multiple people, two people add different features as represented by the hat and sunglasses, and you can combine them later. I have a feeling that part of the, how would you say, not problem, but like one of the barriers to good scientific collaboration is that it's hard to share code like this. Many people aren't good at it. So you end up having two copies of the code and they don't really sync. I know that's been a problem with some of my previous collaborators before.
Yeah, so a bit on branching. So one can see branching as a kind of like a different line of work for the same code, maybe a new feature that you're trying to implement and you don't want to keep it in your main branch as you're maybe not sure if that's something actually you want to keep. So
Yeah.
you can view you can view the sunglasses as like a feature that your project may have. And you
Yeah.
will show you later how you can actually merge these together on your main branch if you're happy with it.
Yeah.
So kind of like an experimentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Once we have this, we're more reproducible, just like with the paper review thing. So you can understand where all the changes are. So in this view here, I guess the picture is kind of small. And I can't really zoom in,
You can
but this
open
shows,
the link, browse this example online, and then it's
mhm,
going to have it less blurry. Oh,
yeah,
okay, this works very nice as
okay,
well.
this works. So what we see here on the right side is all the code. And on the left side, we see exactly when each line of code was last edited.
So this is a
So
file that has been opened, one file in this
yeah, yeah,
repository called NetworkX.
yeah. I mean, what you see in the code doesn't matter right now. So this is just an example. We're going to go into more depth for all of these things later on. Who's ever wanted to send someone a bit of code so they can see it, but it's annoying to attach it to an email and tell them where to look or copy and paste? With GitHub, we can do things like paste it into, like paste a link that highlights a certain bit of code. How do we use Git? Like, what do we use it for? So obviously there's code and software, there's other scripts, there's documents. For example, if you're writing a paper in LaTeX, it works really well there. But even other files that aren't plain text files, you can, in theory, track with version control. Configuration file, website sources. This lesson itself that you're reading now is itself tracked in version control. So you could say that the whole workshop is a lesson in how to use the teaching tools in the workshop if you want to be recursive about it.
So one question. So what
Yeah,
would be the advantage of actually using version control like Git instead of using different zip files which are dated?
yeah. So yeah, you could always go and make a backup copy manually like this, where you basically, well, are archiving different things. But with all these archives, you can go back to a certain time. But what if you want to see what the differences are? That's sort of hard. What if you want to compare over time? What if you want to see what's in each of these? What if you want to search for a certain change you've made and so on? That's more difficult. So this is better than nothing, but compared to being able to run one command and save all your work in the same place, it's not quite so convenient.
Yeah, and one thing I would add, if you actually have a project which is quite large in size, you don't want to make all these different copies of your project. Git actually is going to save only one version of one change to a file. So that's so you don't. It's going to keep. So it's going to ensure that that your tracked project is actually light in size.
Yeah.
That's one big
And
advantage, especially for big projects.
yeah. And this provides nothing with the branching and merging and things like that. If I send someone a zip archive and they work on it, now I have 2 zip archives, and that's a bigger problem. So yeah. But we know that not everything is perfect. So there are difficulties. And the point of our lesson here is to try to make it easier. So it's another thing to learn, but I think everyone here would agree that it's well worth the time spent to learn it, especially if you want to do anything else in your career with code and so on. It's better to learn quickly. Um, if you have collaborators that don't want to use version control, well, I'm sorry, but that is a pretty common thing. When I was doing my academic work, it was always hard to find someone that wanted to take the time to do it. But I mean, if you help them, maybe they will begin working. I've often done a thing where I've had version control of a manuscript, and I would send my advisor a copy by email, but I would track locally what version they last got so I can merge it myself on my end. And this last point here about advanced things being difficult is definitely a bit of a problem somehow. But I think that our philosophy here is that the basic things should be easy and don't worry about the advanced things. Even if you use Git in the most basic way, it will save you time compared to other things, and you don't need to worry about advanced stuff. So we are really trying to make this a user-friendly and practical starting course. And to be honest, when you need to do something advanced and you don't know, you can ask someone else or learn it when you need to. There's no need to for everyone to know everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I mean, Git is so
Yeah.
beneficial if you just, even if you use it in a very basic way. So you don't have to know all the commands. I don't know all the commands. So you can just
Yeah.
take it slow, learn to do some things, and then you'll grow from there. So there is no need to learn everything from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are other things besides Git for version control, but we focus on Git because it's the most popular one, which means that it's in the most places already. And well, in the end, teaching the more common thing is more useful because that's what you're more likely to use. We want to be practical and not pedantic. But it does have some good features, like the distributed nature, although it's not the only one that's distributed now. So with that being said, should we check the notes and see if there's any questions?
Yes.
Mm, there should have been a motivation section here. Um, Most of these, is there a limit to the size of files and documents? No, not really. I mean, there's only the practical limit of how big of stuff you want to control.
Yeah,
I,
maybe. So one good point is that uh, if you have the repository on your laptop, then it's not really a size limit. But if you put things on a different platform, like on GitHub or GitLab or anywhere else, there may be a limit for private repository.
mhm,
Private
mhm,
repository. So that is something that you may want to consider. There is no limit, as I know, for public ones, but if you're not ready to share
yeah,
it with the world yet, then there may be some limits there. And there is
yeah,
actually one link in the answer there,
yeah,
so you may check. And this also, so this limit actually changes over time. So I
mhm,
think, well, one is more and more. I mean, this usually goes higher and higher over time. So as
yeah.
storage.
There's a really good
Hmm?
question here number 9, can I use Git for Word and PowerPoint? So it's designed for code and text files, but you can store any kind of files in there. So Git would look at the Word and PowerPoint things as just binary documents, and you don't get things like the differences and merging that look so good. But I've done this before when I've worked with people who want to write a paper and they're only using Word. I have my own private repository where I'm tracking things, and you can also use extensions that let you show differences between versions and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm.
So difference between GitHub and GitLab. I think that's probably being answered there, and we'll answer it later, so maybe we should go on.
Yeah, so I
So I
think actually
think, yeah.
everyone wants to know how they actually get to work with Git. So maybe I'm going to get the screen share from you, and let's look further into a repository. And we are going to start with a repository on GitHub. So I hope you can all see my screen here. So you find this lesson.
Yes.
So we are going to continue with modifying an existing project. And I'm going to now zoom this in. And the very first thing is copy and browse an existing project. And as I said, we are going to look at something which is stored on GitHub. And what we will be doing is to make a copy of an existing one that we have prepared for you. And in GitHub terms, when I say making a copy, what I mean is making a so-called fork of this repository. And one note here, so usually when we refer to a repository, so a copy of our project on a cloud platform like GitHub, we usually refer to it as a remote. So if you see remote, then think of it as a repository in the cloud. So
what we're doing now, are we looking at GitHub to see something that exists, and we make our own copy, which is the fork?
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we will share exactly which repository we'll look at. And throughout these lessons on Git, there'll be different ways you can follow this along. Some parts can only be done on GitHub, but other times you can do this via the command line or using other IDEs like VS Code or other IDEs which have Git integrated. But what we'll do in this first lesson is to show you how you can do it on GitHub. And throughout the lesson, I'll let you know if other options are actually more suitable for the things that we do. But again, now we'll be focusing on GitHub. So the first thing we will do is to create a copy of an existing repository. So create a fork of this repository. And so think of, again, I mean, as the repository as copies, different copies taken at different times of our project. And the project we will be working with is called Recipe Book. And it's under a GitHub user organization, which is called CR Workshop Exercises on GitHub. And so what we'll do by forking is to make another copy of this repository. So with all these different commits and branches that it may have, but not residing in this user space, but in our own user space. And so we'll copy this under our own organization or user space on GitHub. So which is the repository that we are going to copy or fork? So it's this one here. So github.com CR workshop exercise recipe /book. So you may just open this in a browser, and for the sake of So I will be working with this repository instead, which at this point is identical with recipe book. And the reason is because, well, I don't want some other usernames to show up as we are now streaming this. But no worries, these two repositories are identical at this point. So I am going to open this in a new tab and go to that tab. It's a bit tricky as the,
Okay.
yes. So, so I have CR workshop exercises recipe book recorded. And I'm going to just check a little bit what this repository is all about. So I will just decrease the font size a bit so that you see that this looks a little, I mean, being zoomed out, you lose some of the information that is on the page, but basically we have a content of the repository. So all the files and directories that we are tracking with Git. Then we have some information about the repository. By default, GitHub is actually going to show the content of the README file, and it's usually nice to have a README file for your repository so that people know, oh, what is this all about? So this is just a repository that tracks different recipes, and it's categorized. Well, they are all stored into different directories, and I can see that if I go to these different directories, then I may find different files. So, so what we are going to do now is actually not to work in this repository. And why, Gina, why wouldn't I want to work on this repository?
Yeah, so this reminded me, like what you're showing here seems like something I do quite often. So there's some new project, new code, and I want to see, okay, like, do I want to use this person's project in my own work? So I go there, and first I'll browse it and see what's in there. And then I decide, yes, okay, I want to try using this myself. And maybe I want to modify it. But I guess I can't modify someone else's work on GitHub. So I make my own copy.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
what
So
is going to happen here.
So what we are going to do is to fork this repository. So make our own copy of this repository. And actually GitHub is very smart in showing what different tabs do if you just hover over with mouse over them. So I'm going to click on this fork. So I click on fork. And again, I mean, you should not use this recipe book recorded, but you should use the recipe book. So then I am prompted to choosing an owner. So under which user space do I want to have this copy of the repository? And I'm going to choose mine. Oh, okay. First, I'm going to, let's see, rename this because I already have a copy of this repository. I'm going to call it 25. And so let's choose, oh, I cannot fork twice. Okay, maybe I should remove my other fork.
Okay,
So
right. Yeah.
this is, so bear with me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete my other fork.
So basically what happened is when you were practicing, you've
Exactly.
already
And
made a
that's, I
copy.
wanted to
Okay.
do that because I pushed something. So then you know how to actually remove. I'm going to click on settings. No, not settings. Oh, this is a bit, these settings.
Settings.
And
Okay.
somewhere here, there should be a danger zone. And then I'm going to click delete this repository. And you should be certain this is what you want to do because there is no going back. And then, so this is a bit more advanced than we intended at this step. You really need to be sure you want to remove repositories. So yes, so sorry for this. So then let's go back to this original repository. Sorry for this. I have. So yes. So now I'm going to fork this from CR workshop exercises, and I have the owner selected, a repository name, which I may keep the same or I may change.
Okay.
And then the description is taken from the original repository. And I'm going to keep that. I think it's a good one. And then I'm going to deselect this. And the reason why I do this, because I want to copy all the branches that this repository had. And then click on creating fork. So what happens is I'm going to have this recipe book in my under my GitHub username, and then it looks exactly the same. I even get an information that this is a repository which has been forked from another one, but the content is exactly the same. The advantage is that I actually have control over this repository. I can change this as I want, do any modifications I may wish, and share them back, as we'll see later. So
yeah.
So then
And this is
yeah.
And this is possible because it's on GitHub and because it's public. Could I do this with a private repository?
So you cannot do this with a private repository unless you have permission to fork from that one. So you have to be you may need to be added actually as a member to that
Okay.
Yeah. repository before being able to fork.
Yeah, yeah. So like you still have the
yeah.
permission things going on here. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay then. So
So by the way, I'd like to say there's a emergency update of the note document, so it's offline right now. I've been watching this in another chat, so don't panic if you can't ask questions right now, but hopefully we'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes.
yeah. So then, so now that we have our fork, what we are going to do is to investigate this repository that we have forked. And one thing before we do that, so this this repository that we have copied from, we usually call it the upstream repository. So it's just another fancy name, GitHub term or a Git term actually, for repositories that we have copied from. So upstream. And then, so the exercise that we'll be doing in the following is to browse through this fork that we have copied, investigate the commit history, check, how we can find different different terms in different files, check, who has modified what in this repository. And we are going to do this for 20 minutes, I think. 20 minutes, and hopefully the collaborative document is going to be back online fast so that you can get to ask us questions. But
So
yes, I'm
is it
going to
also
maybe...
time for a break? Should we say maybe break plus exercise time? And then
Yes, so let's say that. So break and
people can,
exercise until 15 past? Or no, that's a bit short.
well, that's a bit
Until 20 past?
to 20, so that's 10 minutes break and 15 minutes exercise. I guess we can start with that. But
Yeah.
the notes is working again.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
it works.
So
Okay,
then
cool.
if at any point you don't know what to do, please ask us in
Okay,
a collaborative document, and yeah, hopefully you will enjoy this first exercise.
yeah. Okay, so we sent the notes and you can read further instructions there. See you in a little bit. Bye.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you got to try the first exercise. I'm sure it has been a bit tricky, especially for those of you that are new to the GitHub interface, but I was thinking that actually in the following minutes, I'm going to walk you through the solution. And so I am now in this repository again that I have forked, the recipe book recorded, and you are working with the recipe book one. That's okay. So the first thing that you were asked to do is to browse the commit history. So then one way to browse the history is to, well, simply look at the, looks a bit different. Look at the commits. So I'm going to make this a bit larger. So so here I have, for example, the latest commit that has been done by us, and Richard, I have lost the commits. Where were they? It was supposed to be somewhere here.
Yeah,
So
where the history, could it be the clock icon?
yes, sorry, it's because whenever I have the window smaller, then it just doesn't show everything. So I have the latest commit, which was done 7 months back, and then clicking on this clock, then I can actually go and see not only the latest one, but all the commits that have been done for this repository. Let me scroll this back. So then, if you remember from the motivation part, so I see the commit message. So this is actually what is shown in bold here. The time of the commit and the committer, and also a hash. And actually, it's only part of the hash that each command has. So it's like a unique identifiable for a commit, which is, think of it like a snapshot of the state of the repository at that particular time. So September 1st. And then I can see the whole history from the latest to the first commits. I can also change the branch. So there are different branches for this particular repository. There is a lasagna branch, which again, I mean, has its own history of commits. So this is one way of looking at the history. There is another feature that GitHub has in order to see the history of a repository. If you go here, so the top menu, and then click on Insights, and then Network, then there is a graphical visualization of the repository. So so we have forked the repository. So today, 25th of March. So this whole history of commits is actually the one that has been on the original upstream repository, so the one we forked from, and then there are some new commits that I have introduced, and we'll talk about them in the next episode. But so all this line, so the black one with the different circles, it's like one line of commits, one branch in this repository, and time is going. So from left to right is increasing time, and then there is another branch here shown in blue, a branch which is called Alex Fruit Salad, which has a couple of commits. So it's a branch which has been formed at some point in time, and then it got merged back unfortunately doesn't say the time. I think I have to zoom in a bit, but we'll show you exactly how you can actually form these branches and then merge them together in the main one. So that's another way of looking at the history. So how can I actually find out when a recipe was last modified? So I go back to code and let's pick up one recipe. So I go into one of the directories. Let's see this vegetarian lasagna. So then, sorry, let's get back. So I see that this particular file has been last modified. So on the last commit date, sometime last year. If I do open it, then I can also get a hash of the commit. So it has been modified by Bust, which will tell you all about collaborative Git the third day. And then, well, these are the contents. I can see the history, which will tell me all the different commits that actually modify this file. So it's not only the one on the fifth, it's not only this commit, but there has been some other changes before. So let's quickly see the guacamole recipe. So I go back to so I go back to code. So let's see, I actually do not know where the guacamole recipe is. Then I can click on this button, go to file, and start typing guacamole. And then GitHub is going to search through this repository and open this file, or that well, in this case is the guacamole MD file. So what we were to do here is that to see how many changes this file had. And then again, as for the previous one, I'm going to click this history button. And I see there are several different commits by different committers. So both Bast and Jamie Garcia that has committed to that has introduced changes to this guacamole recipe and committed it. So step number 5, which recipes include the ingredient salt? So of course, if you don't
many people had problems with this and the indexing
yes,
thing.
exactly.
But
So there is a search button at the very top, towards the right of the page. So if you one click that button, then I can search actually in many different repositories. By default, GitHub is going to suggest that I search within this particular repository, but I can search through the entire GitHub, but by default, again, it's this particular one. And then I'm instructed to search for recipes that include ingredient salt. So this is so GitHub actually needs to index the repository before it can actually search through it. So the very first time you do the search, it may take a couple of minutes. So as it does have to index this repository. So if I look for search, I see that actually there are many recipes that include this term. So in salads mixed and sides and so on. So that is one way to search the contents of the files. So if you remember before, clicking that button, clicking the button, go to file, which sometimes actually shows like a search button. It doesn't check the content, but it actually checks the name of the files, which match a certain syntax. So it is different. So number 6, again, we are going to go to the guacamole recipe, which I remember now it is in sides, guacamole. So let's say that I want actually to know who has edited this file and who, so we remember that if we check the history, then we got the name of the committers for this file and when they have committed, but let's say that I actually want to know which changes they have introduced. So one way of doing that is by clicking on this name, on this tab called blame, and this comes from the git blame command, which is actually similar to the git annotate command. So what it actually does is to break this guacamole MD file into different lines and showing which lines have been modified by whom. So the top of the file has been changed by Bust, and then it also says when, and then again, I mean, there are different changes which have been introduced at different so it's going to show by default. So the last so when a certain line or a group of lines have been modified last. Okay, then. So can you actually use these recipes yourself? And this is something that we'll talk a lot. We'll talk about next week. So licensing. What can you actually do with a repository that you have forked? So the important thing is to look at the license, and you can see this either on the right part of the repository, or you can also find it close to the README file. So if the repository has a license file, which is recommended, then you can check what you are allowed to do with the repository, what changes can you do, and how you can share them. So I'm going to click on the license file, and let's say that I actually don't know what this Creative Commons license actually means. So GitHub does provide a very nice summary if you open the license file. So this is so the Creative Commons 0 is a very permissive license. You can use it commercially, you can modify it and distribute it. And yes, so basically you can do almost anything. It's not so suitable if you actually want to use this in a patent. So depending what is the ultimate goal of your project, then you may think of different licenses. And then again, in next week, we are going to have one lesson which discusses different licensing. So the very final thing to show before we go further is to browse issues and pull requests in the upstream repository. So remember, the upstream repository is the one that we have forked from, the one we have copied from. So let's say I don't remember what that link was. So if I go to my main page of the repository, then I can see that, okay, it has been forked from this repository. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to see, so the top menu shows issues. There are 2 issues to this repository. And well, the recipe book repository, I'm sure, has many more issues, but this one in particular has 2. And issues, you can see issues as like, let's say that you have some questions about these particular repositories, maybe some features that you think that you would like to introduce. Opening an issue is one way of starting a discussion on a project. Then there are some pull requests as well, and how to actually create these pull requests and why they are useful. We will be doing that in the first episode. So, Richard, anything else that we should discuss before actually, seeing how we can do commits now that we browse through the repository?
There's a lot of good questions in the notes that we're monitoring. I don't see anything that maybe it's better to go to commit, because some of the questions are starting to be about how you commit in messages and so on. So if we go to that, we can start answering them.
Yes, exactly. So committing changes. How do we actually commit changes? So we have started from this existing repository on GitHub, but let's assume that now we actually want to introduce our own changes. In this case, we want to add some new recipes or modify existing ones. So we can do that. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit as we have discussed that already. So let's say that we have an existing repository with different commits. Let's say we have a series of commits on the main branch, so the main line of development. And then we can we want to create a new branch. So let's say that we have some features that we want to introduce, and we do not want to do it on the main branch because maybe, well, we still want to ensure that this main branch produces results that we want. And we just want to introduce some experimentation to our project. So then we can create a new branch that we refer to in this case as your branch. And so our repository is going to look like this. So we have a series of commits that we add on this branch that we call your branch. But at any point in time, we can actually go back to the main branch and do further commits on this main branch. So then what we'll have is, so except the initial commits that we have the new ones on your branch, and then we have additional commits on main. So this is what we'll want to do in this repository recipe book. And again, there are different ways that one can do that. One can use GitHub, and that's what we'll demonstrate. But one can also use the command line or work in IDE as well. So it's up to you. But again, we'll show how you can do this on GitHub. So we will continue with the same repository, the recipe book 1, and then what you need to make sure is that you work on your fork. So you work in your username recipe book, and then what you will do is to create a branch and add a recipe in that branch, and then modify that recipe on that particular branch that you created, and further on switch to the main branch and add yet another commit. So Richard, so let's say how long time should we say for this particular exercise?
So we have 20 minutes until the scheduled lunch break. Should we say 20 minutes and then go to lunch and we don't say anything else? Or should we say we come back for a brief wrap up?
So let's do a brief wrap up before the lunch.
Okay.
I think that's that could be good. Or we do the wrap up just after the lunch when we come back. That's also an option. Yeah, let's do that.
Maybe if we do wrap up after lunch, people can go to lunch early and beat the queues and so on if they want. So okay.
Yeah. So exercise, lunch, and then we are back in 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm adding the info to the notes doc where the exercise is. We will keep answering questions as usual. Keep asking. Yeah. Any final stuff? So summary is now we're adding commits to something. And yeah, okay. So see you after lunch.
See you.
Bye.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good break. So just before this longer break, we're supposed to do an exercise on GitHub for this recipe book repository, and I will quickly walk you through a solution. So I will go back to my fork, and the first thing that we were to do is to make sure that you are on the that we are on the fork, and that is correct. So I can see my username there, so I'm not under the CR workshop exercises. And then I should create a branch and add a recipe to that branch. So how can I create a branch? So it's important actually that you are signed in, that is the case. So here in the left, just under the repository info, you can see the name branch, the word main, which actually is the name of our default branch. And I can switch to a new branch, to another branch, or I can actually create a new branch by just typing the name of it in the search one. So I will call, how should I call this new branch? I will just call it new branch.
Okay.
Which is a very bad name for a new branch.
Yeah.
But I'll give it this bad name so that I can show you later how you can rename it. So that's what we have. I'm now on this new branch. And then what I am to do next is to add a recipe. So
this seemed to be a common question in the note. So something about making the new branch and then committing on it and getting the commit to show up in the right place. And I know
exactly.
this is also often a problem with doing it other ways. So
it's important that before you add changes, you do check on which branch you are. So if you are working on GitHub, then you see this just under the repo info. So in the code menu, and then this is the branch of the name of the branch under this source control symbol that you may also recognize in other IDEs. So it's like having this, well, it's a symbol for actually merge the branches. So yes, do make sure that this name corresponds to the branch where you actually want to introduce changes. That's important. Just because you created the branch doesn't mean that you are on the right branch, but on GitHub, the moment you do create a branch, it will switch to it directly.
Okay.
And now
what happened?
It happens all the time. When I click, it just goes to, I don't know, it goes bananas. So now I'm on the main branch. Actually, that's not what I want. So let me switch to this new branch. You see, I mean, sometimes GitHub behaves funnily. So it happened previously as well. That's why sometimes I don't like to work with the web interface, because it just does what it wants.
Right.
So here I switch to the branch I actually want, new branch, and then I want to add some changes there. So I will follow the instructions in the exercise. So I was actually I should have created a new recipe branch. So sorry for that, but the name is not super important. So, but I should do, let's see, create a site recipe, and so yes, I am now in this subdirectory sites. I'm going to add a file. So I find it just under the menu, add file. And what can I see? I can click the plus to create a new file, or I can actually upload a file. If I have one, I don't. I'm going to edit it on GitHub, which is okay for short files, but for longer ones, I mean, of course, it's more convenient to upload. But it really depends on what you want to do. Here, I should also name my file, so I'm going to use mixed nuts. And I'm going to give it the same extension as the other files in my repository have. So a markdown file. In short, it has an MD extension. And then I'm going to enter a recipe. So let's see. I do have a template somewhere there, but let's call it, let's give it a title, mixed nuts. And what should we have? So I should have some ingredients. And maybe some of you actually notice that unless I have this line, there are some GitHub actions which will fail, but we'll see that later. So what to add here? What's your favorite nut?
Cashews, pecan,
Is
walnuts.
it? Yeah, walnuts.
Yeah.
And then let's add some instructions. Let's say
I think it's adding extra, those bullet points there.
let's see.
Yeah, nice and simple.
Okay. And typos as always. So now I have my file here. So the next thing to do is to commit this change. And then I click on this red button here. And what I'm prompted is with a pop-up window asking for a commit message. And I get the default, but I can also write my own commit message. So let's say add recipe for mixed nuts.
Yeah, okay, so and there was a question about what or how to write it, and this is a common one. It's like imperative. You are adding this.
Yeah. So this is a short change to our repository. So it does not necessarily need an extended description. But for example, if you do a lot of changes in your file, then you might want to explain actually why you've done those changes and what those changes are. So one can add an extended description here. But it is important to have a commit message which will identify in short the summary of your changes so that you can more easily find a certain commit in your history of commits. So
yeah, this is
and
about
this
right.
this is also this also shows as a top line in the commit message when you display the history of your repository. So it's important you have something concise and suitable for these changes. And then I'm going to check that the branch that this should be committed to is the one that I actually want. So the default is the one that we had under code, but I can also create a new one. That is not the case. I do want to commit under this one. And then I just click commit changes. Yeah.
Okay.
So then I get this interesting message saying that my branch is ahead of the upstream repository, so the one I copied from. This is a nice way to see, I mean, how does your repository stand with respect to the upstream? And yeah, so now we are one commit ahead. That means that I have one extra commit compared to this repository. And as you have forked from recipe book, you may actually get a different a different message here. Okay, then.
Yeah.
Now I should modify this recipe with a new commit on this on the same on the same branch. So I will, I'm going to open this file again, and I'm going to edit it. So I click on this edit. I don't want to add a new file. I just want to improve it. So let's see. Seasoning. I'm going to say that we should have some seasoning, like salt or and chili. What do you say? Would this
Yeah,
work?
sure. I would like both of
Chili
those.
flakes. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to commit this, and then I'm going to say, actually, update is not very useful, so I'm going to say add seasoning. Seasoning here as well. Okay, then. So on the same branch, commit changes. So now what do I have? I have two new commits, right, on my new branch. And then step 4 is to switch back to the main branch and modify a recipe there as well. So basically introduce a new commit there. So I am going to click on code, go back to the main branch. So select the main branch. Here it is. And what should I do here? Let's open a recipe. Let's see what we have for salads here. Fruit salad. I'm going to edit this file. And let's say I actually don't want fresh beans. I'm going to take some whipped cream instead. And commit changes. And then remove it. Okay, and then again, make sure I'm on the right branch that I am. So what do I have now? I have one new branch. Sorry, one new commit on main. Actually, it's not very easy to see here, but let's go to this history view that we looked at before. So I have this new commit, remove mint, add cream on the main one, while on this new branch, I had added two commits. Actually, there was a branch which was called a new branch before, but I have new commits. I added two new commits here, add seasoning and add recipe for mixed nuts. So what do I want to do now? I want to actually compare the changes I have introduced to the change in on the main branch. So in the repo, and I'm going to scroll down a bit here so you can see. So going to go to code. So here, where I have the name of my main page of my repository, I'm going to take that back and actually click and edit, write compare. So GitHub, my username, the name of the repository, and then the important name compare. So this, as we'll see, works a little bit like the git diff command. So it will allow us to compare different commits that we have in our repository. And I can choose either a branch or a commit from the left here. So let's say that I want to compare.
Oh, how did you get here? You got to...
So the way I did here, so
Is this
from
making
the
the
main
pool?
page of the so from the main page of the repository,
Yeah,
I am in the wrong one.
it's the...
I should have, it's because it swaps between the fork and upstream a bit widely. But
Yeah.
So under my username and the name of the repository, so recipe book recorded, and then compare. So yeah, this is what one should do. And then I am prompted with what I would like to compare, either compare against the upstream. So these are your workshop exercises, and I can choose which branch in particular I want to compare from there, or yeah, and what I want to compare with. So by default, it took my own repository, my own fork, and then the branch name. So actually, I can see that compared to the upstream, so the main branch has a change, and that change is in this fruit salad file, and the change is so in red is shown what is missing in my main branch, and in red shows what I have added to my commit. So I added this line and I removed the other one. So this is what is different, and I can also use it together with hashes, so I can compare certain commits. Then in order to do that, I'm going to go to the history view again. So let's say I want to compare two different commits from my repository. So I have copied, so I clicked on this copy full hash.
Okay.
And then again, so let's see, I have to make sure that I type the right thing here. And this is what I find a little bit annoying with GitHub, because I can't see everything, first of all. Compare, this is so annoying. So, so then actually, you know what I'm going to do so that you all see what I am typing. I'm just going to type it here. Let's see. No. Bear with me for 1 second.
Okay, I see you opened a notepad here.
I'm going
or
to
something.
open a text editor so that I can actually see what I am typing. So compare, and then I'm going to copy this hash, for example. Let's see. And then you don't see everything.
But I see.
So now
/compare
and then, so I added the
hash.
full hash, and I'll add 2 dots, and then copy another hash. So let's see actually what is in my
So this is upstream.
So this is the upstream. So this is the problem, is that this always changes back automatically whenever whenever I am whenever GitHub doesn't find the link that that you are trying to edit, then it kind of figures out for you what you should be typing. So let's edit the right thing. So this is very annoying. And maybe you experience this as well. So let's go back to the end and add the other hash. Okay. So let's go to the new branch and the latest commit on that.
Okay, I see your 2 commits.
Yes, and now I'm going to copy paste this. This is not elegant, I should say. I don't like this a lot, but it's a way to show that you can compare 2 commits on GitHub. So here we have it. We have a change between that commit specifies first, and that was on the main branch. And then we have another hash which stands for the latest commit on the new branch. And what is different is this new file mixed nuts with this content. So again, it's, yeah, it is a little bit troublesome to actually add all these hashes, so I don't find it ideal. But it is one way of doing differences. And the final thing is renaming a branch. So let's see how we can actually do that. So going back to the history of my commits, I see, oh, actually I should see view all branches. Let's do that. View all branches. So then I have a list of all the branches for my my repository. So let's assume that this new branch actually had a bad name. It's not, actually it is very, very bad because it's not representative for what it includes. And I have to scroll a little bit here so that I get to the most right part with these 3 dots, which if I click on that allows me to rename the branch. So I'm going to give it another name, Diana Hummus. It's quite common actually that a branch, especially for a repository that has several collaborators, that the branch contains the name of the person that initiated that branch, especially if you are the only person working on that particular branch. Okay, so that was it. I can also have tags. And then again, going to code. So you'll see me going back to the main code view many times. So I can add tags, for example, there. And there are no tags right now. So what is a tag? Tag is like adding another identifier to a certain commit. So let's see, I can choose a new tag. Let's see, version 0.1. And then I have to specify which branch do I actually want to tag. And then also the commit that I want to tag. So I'm going to take no, it doesn't matter. This one. And I will describe this as first draft of my recipe book. And then publish release. Okay. So but now what do I have? So I have this new branch, Diana Hummus, which I may actually merge into the main branch if I wish. And then if I am on GitHub, I see that I am prompted with a compare and pull request tab. So what happens if I click on that? So I can then incorporate the changes that I have in the Hummus branch into the main one. So I merge these 2 lines of work into one branch again. So what I have to do, yeah.
Is what we're doing part of the exercise right now, or is
No,
it
it's not
going
part of
further?
the exercise. So
Okay.
we are now moving further into, so let me show you. So we are moving now into merging changes and contributing to the project.
Okay,
So
so is this a demo right now of this part?
yeah, you can
Okay.
follow along, or you can better just watch, and then you can get to do this as an exercise.
Okay.
So what you need to be careful, especially when you are doing this on GitHub, is to specify which repository you want to have a pull request against. So because GitHub knows that this repository is a fork of the upstream one CR workshop exercises recipe book, then it's going to have a pull request against this repository by default. But I actually do not want that. I want to do a pull request against my repository, the main branch on my repository. So now you see that by selecting that, I got back to my main one. And then the branch that I want to merge into this one, so do the is the Diana Hummus branch, so that was correct. And then it tells me, so GitHub tells me that it's able to merge this automatically. I can add a title, so merging hummus into main, for example. And I can give it a description and create a pull request. There are the different options. So if I click on this triangle, I can see that I can choose the default, create pull request, but I can also create a draft. This is if you are if you still want to work on your branch before the final merge. That is not what we want right now. We want to ask for a pull request. So this is what I'm going to click on. So again, what this means is that I want to merge the hummus branch into the main one. Okay, so then it tells me that, okay, everything is ready to be merged, but I actually have to confirm the merge. And because I am the only person that is actually working on this repository, I get to do this merge myself. But when you are working on a shared repository with several people, usually the person that does the pull request is not the one that is merging. It's just, it's just a practice. But for repositories that you are working on yourself, you can do the PR and the merging yourself. So then I click on this, and then I can provide a commit message. So I'm happy with that. And I click on commit merge. So then let's check actually our network graph, see how that looks. And then I'll listen to your comments. 1 second. So we're insights. Sorry, I clicked on settings instead. So insights network. It takes a bit of time when there are many new commits. It's going to show up quickly. So so what I have is this blue branch. It was my Diana Hummus branch. And then what I did in this last commit is to merge it into main. So GitHub is going to show it like, okay, there is an arrow from the Diana Hummus branch into the main one. And it also prompts me with the commit message for that merge. And now you may wonder why there are so many other things under the main one. So these are simply different forks that exist for the upstream repository. So GitHub is going to collect all that information and put it all in the network graph.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So where are we now?
So let's see. So what we did was to show how a merge can be done on GitHub. So then what you can do now, so you also had your several commits on a branch and some possibly some newer commits on main. So your task is now to attempt to merge these branches. So merge your branch into the main one.
Okay. So everything
this,
you just did with the pull request and the merge is now the exercise where people do it themselves,
yes,
following the instructions. Okay.
yes. And you can do
And
it as I have done it using GitHub. That's one solution. And if you're comfortable with the command line and you've worked a little bit with Git before, then you may attempt this solution as well. But
mhm.
but I recommend that you try GitHub.
There's a good question, number 61. Can we make a pull request from the new branch to the main branch of the original repository?
Yes.
And I think the answer. Go ahead.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can do that, and that is actually very common. You usually do a pull request against the upstream, and that is the whole reason why you actually do a fork. For repositories you do not have the right to modify. You do some line of work in your own fork, and then you may ask for a pull request and have your changes integrated in the upstream repository. So yes, that is possible and very common.
Yeah, and this is done as part of step 7 of the, it's an advanced step, optional. You can do it, but also on day 3, we do this a lot. But I'd recommend starting with doing it in your own repository because then you can merge it. Today, we're not going to be merging stuff into the public repository.
No, we'll show that more on day 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so then exercise time until 10:02. Is that a good time, Richard?
Until for 20 minutes? Or how
Yeah.
long did you say? Until?
Yes, 20 minutes.
Okay, so until, yeah. Okay, sounds good. I'm setting it up. And so the exercise is this here, and our goal is to do everything except the optional step.
Yeah.
And after that, we have more discussion and stuff while we wrap up, I think. Okay, great. See you in a little bit. Bye.
Okay, welcome back from the break. Well, the exercise break. I'm going to show this very final very final step, which was optional, on how to actually handle pull requests to the upstream branch. And so for that, I am going to go to CR Workshop Exercises Recipe Book and click on Pull Requests. And please note that this is the recorded version, so I will not see all the pull requests that you have done. But in this case, they are free pull requests. So let's take this one from Richard. So what do I get to see here? I get to see the committer, and also let's see, what I want to see is which files have been changed in this version that he has. So there is a new recipe for burritos. So this is the file that has been changed. There are several commits in this branch, and I assume, well, one of them has, well, 2 of them have failed. So then he actually proposed a new commit that solves some of the errors that were in the project. So let's assume I'm actually happy I am happy with this proposed change. So then what I can do is to merge the pull request that Richard proposed. So I can also add a comment. So it's especially nice to write comments, especially if you don't need these committers and you only get to communicate with them via GitHub. So thank you for your contribution. Can comment. And also I can comment to a pull request even before I merge and actually say, okay, I would like you to change a certain file or improve on a feature. So I don't have to necessarily accept the merge in its current state. So maybe I want Richard to do some changes before that. But in this case, I am happy. So I'm going to merge it and I can write another commit message for the merge. Going to take that and confirm the merge. So then his recipe for the burritos is going to be in the main branch. So if I go now to mains, then I can see that I have his recipe incorporated here.
I see.
Yeah. So anything else,
Good.
Richard, that we should add?
Let's see. There's a question number 68, contributing to the original repository with pull request. Normally it's the other person. So if you're contributing to someone else's repository, it's the other person that will do the merge, but you don't need to have it in your main branch or anything. It can be in your own branch or whatever. Yeah. There's git switch versus git checkout. There's an older form of basically the same command. So yeah, git switch is the modern word for it. That's been made a bit less confusing. Should we go to our break now? We can keep with the questions and then we can do some final demos and discussion afterwards.
Yeah, let's take a break and then we come back at 10 past. Is that a good time?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So back in 10 minutes.
So sounds good. See you then. Bye.
Okay, welcome back from the break. So before we show a final demo, Richard, is there anything that we should bring from the collaborative doc?
There was a question about restoring branches and all, and how long can you restore things? I don't know how long the GitHub button for restoring branches is still there. Like if you make other changes, that wouldn't work. But all the history is in the repositories. And if you do a normal merge, you can always go backwards. So maybe that's the more important lesson there. Once you have the history,
Yeah.
even if you don't have the button, you can go backwards.
Yeah, you can always see
There,
the closed pull requests. And if you get to your closed pull request, you can see that, okay, you may restore your deleted branch.
yeah,
And usually want to do that if you want to add some additional commits to that branch. So,
yeah,
and also the moment you do a new pull request with the same name, then that will be restored by default. So,
mhm.
yeah.
And
Okay,
there's some
but
of these
then,
other questions about pull requests versus pull requests versus pushing and so on. These are good questions, but maybe we'll go into them more later when we do some more other demos and so on.
yeah.
I think there's some reasonable answers there.
Yeah, it is a bit confusing. Also, it's different, all terminology that that GitHub has, GitHub developers have been using, and it's a bit tricky to understand sometimes if one should use pull or pull.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to actually introducing a conflict in our merge. And how do we get to do that? So I'm going to go to my own fork. And
so first off, what is
yeah.
a conflict?
So
And is this something that we need to go into now? Like where will, well, I mean, we want to go into it now, but when does it become important?
so a conflict appears when you are changing the same portion of the file in two different branches. And then you want to merge those two branches. And then
Yes.
either you merge it via the command line or on GitHub. Git doesn't know, okay, how do you actually, which changes do you want to keep from these two branches? Because I'm having contradicting modifications to the same part of the file, and I have no idea how to resolve those. So that's what we mean like a conflict. I am unsure, or Git is unsure about how to merge these different changes because they appear in the same file, in the same portion of the file, into different commits that we want to merge, two different branches we want to merge. So I think it's gonna be clearer if I demo it. So again, I'm going to do that on GitHub. So I will create a new branch. Let's call it, what should I call it, Richard?
Good question.
I'm
Well,
gonna make it, I'm gonna call it soup.
well, do you,
because my plan is to take some
are you modifying
recipe
your
we
recipe?
have here. Yeah, I'm gonna take an existing recipe. There, this mushroom soup recipe, and I'm going to modify it, and then commit these modifications. So I am in the branch Diana soup, and then I'll assume. Let's assume that let's see that what did I want to change? Here, that I want to have 2 cups of cream.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'm going to save this changes into a new commit.
So more cream.
And then commit this to Diana soup. Okay. And then what I will do is I'm going to go to the main branch now and change exactly the same file. Where was the main branch? Here. I'm going to change the same file again, actually the same portion of the file, but I'm going to introduce a different change. So soup, mushroom soup, edit, and then I'll say that, okay, I actually only want half a cup of heavy cream. And then commit this change again. Well, now I am on the main branch, so commit this. So I'll call it less cream. This commit message and commit. So what do I have now? I have 2 different modifications to this soup recipe in 2 different branches. And it's the same line which is modified in different ways. So now let's try to merge this. So I have this branch, Diana soup, that I want to merge into the main branch. So I click compare and pull request. And again, I should be careful what I want to merge. So I don't want to merge against the upstream. I actually want to choose my repository, and I want to merge the branch called Diana Soup. And what does it tell me? Oh, you cannot automatically merge. And
Okay.
and the reason is because there is this conflict. So Git cannot automatically decide which of these changes I want to keep in my merged commit.
And
So I'm going to,
I guess this is a common thing to happen if it's a project with multiple people. Hopefully you're not doing two similar things, but you might touch the same line and a human has to
yeah,
decide what to
yeah,
do.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
then I could still create a pull request or a merge request, but
Mm-hmm.
then it told me that, okay, you have to resolve the conflicts before this can be merged. So then what I do is to click on these resolve conflicts, and so GitHub is going to open this file, mushroom soup, which
Mm-hmm.
has the conflict. And it's going to
Yeah.
introduce these delimiters
Yeah.
to indicate where the conflict is. Usually when one resolves the conflict, actually one should remove these delimiters.
Yeah.
So I will remove them. And it's the same if one does it on the command line, these delimiters will show up. But then I have to decide which of these lines, or well, how do I want this line to look like? So what do you think? I'm actually going to go for
Yeah.
half a cup.
Okay.
Um,
So this
and
is you as a human deciding which one is the more
exactly.
useful one right now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to scroll down. Oh,
Oh, where?
and
Ah,
then
there,
mark, yes,
Marcus.
it was actually up here. So mark as resolved. And then click on commit the merge. So mark as resolved, it means that actually I have accepted this change, but I still have to instruct GitHub that I want to merge these two branches. So merge the
Mm-hmm.
Diana Soup branch into the main one. And I can add more comments.
Okay.
I don't want to add more comments, and then just confirm this merge.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one way a conflict can emerge, and of course
Yeah.
it's undesirable, especially if there are two different people that have introduced changes, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know how to resolve them. Then you might actually need to sit together or have some email communication or GitHub communication to see how is best to
Yeah.
resolve that conflict.
Yeah.
So
So this is actually pretty useful because normally if two people were modifying the same thing, you might have to get a human to open them both and figure out what's what and do a lot of manual work. Here you still had to do manual work, but it showed you exactly what the problem was and was, well, much easier than some of the manual merges in my past when I've sent someone code and had to get it back.
yeah, I
So,
think this also makes us realize that if you have a branch you've been working on a long time and you're waiting for too long before you actually try to merge it into the main one, it's more likely that you are going to encounter conflicts when you try to merge. So it's good to think. Well, it's good not to wait too long before attempting a merge, because
yeah,
otherwise it's gonna, well, it may take many days to resolve some of the conflicts. So
yeah,
it's of course very dependent from repository to repository, but yeah, it's something to keep in mind. If it's one person, then well, you get to decide how these conflicts should be resolved. But the more people involved, the more opinions. So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so what now? Should we go to the notes and for a final discussion, looking at different questions and so on?
yeah, maybe just the final thing is
Okay.
like, so we showed most of the things on GitHub. While we did say that, okay, you can
Mm-hmm.
do all these using either the command line or using VS Code or another IDE. But what is your preference, Richard? When should we use what?
So I definitely do use GitHub sometimes, especially for small updates and things like that. And for reviewing and merging things that are relatively clear. I don't often go making new files and doing like serious changes. So like adding a recipe like we've done, yeah, I might as well copy and paste there if I don't have it locally. But for all the real work, it's always done via my local copy of the repository, which is what we will get to tomorrow.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
still being able to merge both of them together is very useful because one is easier short term, one is easier long term.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the same for me. If I have one change per commit, then yeah, I'll do that on GitHub. And also
Yeah.
if I'm working on a different computer and I don't have a clone of that repository, so a copy of that repository on my local machine, then I'll just work on GitHub instead. But
Yeah.
the moment I have many changes to different files, then I think that using the command line is better. But then there is also a threshold until you get comfortable enough and you know enough commands to actually get to do these things on the command line. Although I think that, yeah, it's you can do a lot with just 10 git commands.
Yeah.
So there are definitely pros and cons to these different ways. And I think that GitHub and the features that actually GitHub has have evolved a lot in the last years. There are many things that you can do using the GUI interface compared, or the web interface compared to how it was 5 years back. So, and I think it's still going to evolve. So at some point, maybe you
Yeah.
won't need to do things in the command line unless you prefer that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But okay, let's see.
Did I already say at the bottom there's a feedback section? So we'll keep answering questions, but you can tell us if today was too fast, too slow, a good speed, and so on. And then something to improve, something good about today, any other feedback, and well, you can keep asking questions.
Is
But
there
in the
anything
meantime,
that, yeah,
I want to talk about this question number 74 for a conflict to arise. Sorry, I'm making sure my cat isn't eating some cables or something.
yeah.
Um,
So
the conflict to arise. So if it's the same line, it's a definite conflict. Does anyone know, is it the case if there's something that's on several adjacent lines, if it
I think
detects a
there has
conflict?
to be at least a line in between so that it's not interpreted as a conflict.
Okay, yeah, makes sense because, yeah, so basically it tries to be safer rather than risk messing thing up.
Mm.
But of course, you can change code so that Git doesn't detect a conflict, but the final code doesn't work together with the two different changes. And for that, the way to detect it is with automatic software tests, which GitHub and Git can run automatically. But that's something we cover on day 6, and that's really sort of the capstone part of it.
Yeah. So we
Um,
haven't really showed um, how to compare commits. Well, we did show how to compare commits on GitHub a bit, but I would say actually before every single merge, you should check what you are trying to merge. What are the changes that I introduced on this branch and the branch, and what are the changes in the, and what is different on the branch I'm trying to merge into? That is, I would
yeah,
say, a must before attempting any merge. In this case, it was a simple example. I knew exactly what is different on those two branches, but usually, well, you do want to check. I mean, what have people been modifying on the main branch I know the changes I made, or I can recheck the changes I made. And then
Yeah.
once I compare that either on GitHub or we using Git diff, then I know, okay, this is what I expect from the merge, and
Yeah.
and maybe you may even actually anticipate some of the conflicts before you are attempting the merge. So definitely test how the commits are different between merging.
Yeah. This is a common pattern we'll see in future days. So it's really easy to, in VS Code command line or even GitHub, you get to a place like you're on a branch you aren't expecting and you start doing something and things get messed up somehow underneath. So we'll really emphasize before you do anything, you stop, understand where you are, and then you do the next part.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
before we take any other questions, should our participants prepare for anything in particular before tomorrow?
Yes, actually, there's this news here that's related to this question. Do we recommend VS Code or shell-based? So for the news, so we have the recordings available. Twitch will have them immediately, and probably I will have them on YouTube by midnight finish time. Let's see how well it actually goes. So since tomorrow is more local work, so not from the GitHub web interface, today you didn't need anything installed onto your computer, but tomorrow you need something installed. So we have two main tracks. One is with the command line and one is with Visual Studio Code. And you can choose either of them. I'm not sure which one we will demonstrate with, but it does require stuff to be installed and set up. So definitely look at the installation instructions. And either way, watching the shell crash course will be useful because it will prepare for today. No matter what you do, you're going to need to type some things in a command line, and it's better to have a little bit of familiarity with it first.
Yeah. So
In
if
day
you're not
three,
used to the command line, then feel free to watch the shell course.
yeah. And in day three, there will be even more setup. You'll need to join a team and request access to a repository before you can do a certain part. And as
Yes, but we
for would
will,
we
yeah,
recommend?
sorry, we will email you about the steps that you need to do before day 3.
Yeah,
So no worries.
yeah. And as for um, the do we recommend the shell or VS Code? Really, I'd probably recommend whatever you're already using. If you're using VS
Yeah.
Code a lot, use that because that's what you're more likely to use later. If you don't know, well, you can try both tracks of the exercises. Do it in VS Code and then do it in command line or vice versa. And then you see how they relate and we'll learn even more because even though I use both of them sometimes, well, I use the shell more and it's important to be able to put them together.
Yeah, and also if you have another ID that you prefer,
Yeah,
that's also okay to use. Although
yeah,
we will not be demonstrating that, but you can still get help from all the other persons behind the
yeah,
scenes which are helping us answer all these questions.
yeah. Is there anything else? I guess the preparations for the next day is the most important part.
Yeah.
I know I heard rumors of there being a install help session via Zoom an hour before we start tomorrow. I'm not sure if that's happening, but I guess you will get an email about it if it does.
Yes. And also many of the
Yeah.
news and important information is also on the course website, or will be on the course
Yes.
website shortly. So we want to, or actually maybe I can show where to find all this. Of course, I
Okay.
don't have the page open. So yeah, just go to CodeRefinery. Again, I can't see a thing. What day is today? 25.
Yeah, 25 workshop. Yes.
So news are going to be here, and
Mm,
also
mhm.
you may find the past communication under this tab, communication. So then all the communication, all the previous emails are going to be there.
Okay.
But most important things will be under the news here.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
So yeah, I think that's about it for
Yeah.
today. And hopefully you found this useful and you'll join us tomorrow. And we'll continue with Git.
Yes. So good. So see you tomorrow.
You.
Bye.